Good afternoon. I don't think I need to really introduce myself too much. But one of the things that I liked about Tim setting this up was the fact that more and more people get a chance to see and to interact other than in times of distress. Like I get to see most people, I get to meet people. So basically, you know, the arrangements are unlimited now. When we used to talk, I was just talking to Steve about one of the caskets that we have in stock is that there's actually about 130 variations to one casket now. And because everything's all stickers, you know, it used to be painted and you didn't have any options. You can change the interior, you can change the exterior, what they call the stickers on the handles and on the corners. As a matter of fact, the cool thing about what happened just a couple of weeks ago was that we had a gentleman pass away, and he loved elephants. And they were on a safari, and he had taken a picture of a mother elephant and a baby elephant, and the baby's elephant's trunk was coming up across the mother elephant's trunk, and we just thought that was a cool picture. We were able to send it to one of our casket manufacturers, and they were able to make that and put those on the handles and on the corners. And then they wanted a red interior, and so the company went out to like Joann's or whatever and found some red material, and then we took that picture and we grew it up enough so that it would sit in the panel. Now it was a portrait type of panel. It was a lot taller than it was wider, so we couldn't spread it out so it would fit all the way. But what we did is when we put it in, we didn't frame it or anything. We just took the picture and placed it, just had it big enough so that it would be solid against the top and the bottom. And when you stepped back from it, it was a real cool thing. It looked like it was a curtain. And you were looking out this window with these elephants. I mean, just about 2 rows back, that's what it looked like. And so those are the kind of the neat things that we can do now to be able to help the families deal with the grief and that kind of stuff. Cremation is really high. We find more and more. But if you notice in our showroom, we have a lot more urns. They've even come out with some different urns. You know, we got the one that looks like a motorcycle tank. You know, and that's only been out about a year. And we've already sold 1 or 2. And people like that. You know, you can get them. You can even have an urn. You can get a picture to us. We can scan it, send it to an urn manufacturer that does the pictures, and they can put that on. Or they make urns now that have where you can put the picture in the frame on the urn, and so it makes it a lot more personable that way. And you know, so the thing is that it's not all just cut and dry like it used to be. And I'm really glad that I'm in the business at this time of our society, because we can offer so much more. I've been in the business about 34 years. I worked in Modesto for 2 years for Salis Brothers back in the early 80s, and then mid-80s I went to Turlock, worked at Allen Mortuary there. I was there for 17 years. And then I moved up here, and December 1st will be my 15th year anniversary here. And it's just like, you don't think it's been that long, but you know, it just, and I really appreciate being here in the community. One thing that I've always liked is that I've never been called a flat ladder. You know, and I think that's mainly because of the way that people come in here and need my help, and I can help them. But it's fun, and you know, it's good. It's really kind of cool how people aren't even necessarily coming to the mortuary now for memorial services. They're having them out in parks, in homes, in backyards. You know, and it's just so cool to do that. One of the things that we did just about 3 years ago is we opened up our own crematory, which is in Jamestown. which has really been nice. We used to work with one, when I first came here, we worked with a crematory down in Atwater. And they would come up about once a week, and they would pick people up to go do the cremation, and they'd bring back what they took the week before. And to get a rush would cost the families an extra $150. And then we would have to meet the crematory about halfway, which is about Snelling. And now with having our own, it doesn't cost the family any more money to have a rush cremation. And if they want to go, you know, they don't have to drive all the way to Atwater if they want to do the cremation. They can just go right to Jamestown, and we can just enjoy, you know, get it faster and not even charge the family more money. Any questions that I can answer for you? Some of the regulations for scattering is that you have to have permission for the property owner. If you're the property owner, you have to give yourself permission to scatter the cremains on your property. Okay? If you're, as far as doing it over land, like still there are a few people that like to do it in Yosemite. I don't know about you guys, but my wife and I go to Yosemite about 2 or 3 times a year, just because we love Yosemite. And you can go to the ranger station, and you can call them, and they'll send you a letter that shows the places in Yosemite where you can scatter cremains. If you're going to do it, yes.
If there's areas where you can scatter cremains in a county that it's designated, like you were saying, does that mean that those areas then are pledged to be undisturbed?
Generally, they're a public area.
Okay.
They're in wilderness. Like you can contact a ranger station, like go up Highway 4 and stop at the ranger station, and you can tell them you're going to scatter, and they'll show you where you can scatter. And what they do is they have the spots that are the least disturbed.
Okay. The reason I ask is a lot of times when I go up to like big trees, and you hike out to the old tree that's on the far end of the trail there, then I see a lot of cremains kind of dumped around the tree. And I was just wondering about, or scattered, I'm sorry, scattered around the tree.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wonder about whether those were legal, or because it just seems like you would want a place where they wouldn't be disturbed.
Yeah, and I think some of those places like that are done without permission.
Okay.
And people just kind of hide them or whatever.
Okay.
And then take them up and scatter them there wherever they want to. And then once there are a few of them there, then like big trees will make sure that those don't get disturbed.
They won't, so they won't get disturbed.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because they don't want to mess with, they don't want to pick them up and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. You don't want, because if you're a grieving family member and you decide to disturb or scatter them somewhere, you would hate to have them know that they're going to be found up that area, next week or something.
Yeah. And even, I don't know if you ever know, but we've had cremains that family has not picked up from us. They paid the bill, and the kids moved out of the area. We've sent them certified letters. And so what we have is we worked with Tom and Steve Barola, the cemetery board here at Peoples, and they gave us an area where and you can go up and you can see it says Calaveras Mortuary's unclaimed urns. Oh. And the nice thing about that is if we have identification for that urn, it is marked. It's marked with a temporary marker, but it's the new type that we use that even if the paint coat comes off, you can still read the name. And so that if a family comes, which we did have after we buried a bunch of them, a family came and said, hey, I want my uncle. And so we were able to go back and exactly, Tom has a map, I have a map, and then they're also marked with a temporary marker. Mm. So they're done. So even those who have been forgotten by family and friends aren't forgotten by us, and we take the utmost of respect that we can to honor that person who's passed away. I'm of the old school that everybody deserves dignity, and especially after they pass away. And so even with that, and I fought for that for a long time with my boss and worked on getting someplace where we could do it. And it really it's really kind of neat how the place that we ended up with is we have, it's already got its own border, even. And it's where the old windmill used to be for the town, to bring the water into the town. About halfway down, over by the ghost. But it's nice, you know, because it's already got a curve around it. And we figured we could probably have as high as about 150 or 200 cremains there. And if we find that we get more, then we'll just move alongside of it, and then we'll pay to get another border put in. But it's kind of nice because now lately, we haven't had many families not pick up their loved ones. We have had a couple of them where families found them at yard sales, you know, and urn not marked or whatever, and then they find out it's cremains, they bring us in. If we don't have identification, then we just mark it with unknown. So that way, they still have the respect, that we know that somebody's there. Kind of like the tomb of the unknown soldier, type of thing. So, and if you're going to scatter out at sea, the state regulations say you have to be about 300 yards offshore. So you can't just go out off the shore and do it, you know. And Tim Johnson, Kathy's husband, has got a service that he started now, using his kayak and going out and scattering it out, because he likes to go to Monterey all the time. He said he'd do it in Monterey or wherever, but it's kind of nice and it's cheaper that way too, because one man doing it, and he'll go over there on his leisure time. And, did you go out with him on that? So, but that's just kind of an overview of some of the things that have changed over the years. When I first got in the business in 1985, it was like 90% embalming and funerals. And the case was that if I made a removal at 3 o'clock in the morning and I got back at 4, and we knew it was embalming, I embalmed at 4 o'clock in the morning, then went home, took a nap, was back at work at 8 o'clock. Now, with the new technology and the chemicals that we use, if I get a call at 3 o'clock, I bring them here and place them in the refrigerator, and I'll come in the next morning and do the embalming. But now I would probably say we're 75 to 80, maybe 85% cremation right now. And if you'll notice, we've changed, over the years, we've changed our showroom. You know, when I first got here, it was nothing but caskets in the showroom, full caskets. And now it's, because some of the manufacturers made up corner panels of the casket. And if you want, you can go in there and you can see how they are. Instead of having to have 15 or 20 or 30 full-size caskets in a room, you can have that many and take up about a third of the room that you need in the showroom. And so this way we can also offer more cremation urns. And we try to change it up all the time with that. One nice thing that the state doesn't require is that we have all of our urns on the price list. Otherwise, we'd be changing that price list about every other month. But with our caskets, we have to have those on the price list, but they don't have that for the urns, so we can keep the options. And if you go in there, you'll see just a myriad of different types of urns. Any questions? Well, thank you for coming. And if you want to walk around through the office and then into the showroom, and then you can go into the prep room also. One of the things that we've done with Tim here, which has been really great, is that we have the prep room set up and painted. It's not stark white like it used to be. And he stenciled the walls, and just a really nice design on it, soft design. And then we have some curtains that we put together, so we cover up the countertop and the cabinets, because sometimes we have people that get in car accidents and stuff like this, and then there's autopsies, and so we have to worry about leakage. And so we just have, we can have the viewing right in the prep room. And we have, thanks to Marty Crane, she gave us about 4 or 5 quilts. We have a handmade quilt and another quilt, a couple of handmade quilts. So we can really kind of make the viewing, even if it's on a table, to be more like a bed, a tall bed. And it just, we find that the families are more comforted in that respect. Okay?
Harold asked, is the price dependent on what casket that you purchase?
Yeah, each casket has a different price on it, yeah.
Do you have what are the costs that go along with
The costs are, the cost for service is we have a basic overhead cost, which is $9.50, and that's just to pay our staff, pay for gas in the van, the utilities on the van, the upkeep on the van, utilities in the building and stuff like that. For then we break it down to refrigeration or embalming. We have that as the same price. It costs us the same amount to run the refrigerator as it does to run the embalming machine and use the chemicals. So we just have one price for that. If you have cremation, there's no need for embalming, so we just do refrigeration. California law says that we either have to embalm or refrigerate a person after they passed away within 24 hours of their passing. So when we bring somebody from the hospital or the home, they go right into the refrigerator till the family comes in or till we pull the arrangement out, and then the family comes in, we verify that they want to have embalming or refrigeration. And then the other cost is the casket or the cremation container and the cremation urns. And the cremation container is one like you see out here that Amador and Calaveras Hospice have. That's one of our cremation boxes. And that's what a person goes to the crematory in. It's got a lid on it. It's done with the utmost of respect. If we have somebody that's dressed, we leave them dressed. We don't undress them. If family asks, if they bring clothes in and want them dressed, we dress them. We do everything we can possible for the families. And then the urns are various from the free plastic one that we get with the cremains from the crematory to a $400 or $500 one, which are really nice. And then after that is the cremation price itself, which is $258.50, and that's the price to run the crematory and our crematory operator. And then you have death certificates, which right now with the county are $21 a piece, and we don't put any not even just one included in our price, because some families don't even want one. They don't need one. Dad is 98 years old and he was in a convalescent home and they've liquidated everything already, so there's no need for a death certificate. Others,
Doesn't one have to go to Social Security?
no, you don't have to have one to go to Social Security anymore. We do a funeral director's death notification form that we fill out and sign and fax it to the Sonora office, and they put it in the system. The only requirement they really like to have is the family to call the Social Security office, just to confirm everything. That way they know if there's a spouse that needs the death benefit, or if it's a wife and the husband passes away, then to switch over his Social Security. My mom and dad did that. My mom did that just in January when my dad passed away. So, and the only time that Social Security would need a death certificate is if there are minor children. You've got a 35-year-old guy on a motorcycle that's killed and he's got 4 kids, all under 18, then those kids are going to get benefits from Social Security. But you have to have a certified copy for that. Yes?
With respect to a death certificate, what organization you can think of require an original copy from county offices as opposed to just making a copy on a copy machine?
A lot of insurances do. The banks used to, but the banks want to see the certified copy. They'll make a copy of it and give it back to you.
Bank?
Most banks will do that now. The DMV will do the same thing. You take in a certified, they'll make a copy of it. Most companies, if you got credit cards, they'll just take a copy. They don't have to have a certified copy. Medicare, you just call them, or they'll already know from the medical records if they've been on Medicare or whatever. And then any insurances such as retirements. If you've got a retirement and you have the life insurance in that, most unions want a certified copy of the death certificate. And they'll get it from us. And most unions nowadays will deal only directly with families. They won't deal with the funeral directors. And so they'll send the money to the family.
And each certified copy is $21?
They're $21, yes. It's a special embossed paper, and that's what they justify it by. You know, so, and it's I've seen it in the 34 years that I've been in business. I've seen it go from 6 to 21. So it hasn't really, as far as the price gone up in 34 years, it hasn't gone up that much. You know, because that's quite a bit of time for, you know, to raise it up. If you raise it up $2 every year, then it'd be $30 or $40 at that point. But they only change the price about every 5 or 6 years. But you know, that's the way we have no control over that. That's what the state mandates. In some counties, the county recorder or the health department charges an extra on top of that. I know a county that we work with over in the Bay Area that the death certificates are $21 and the county fee is $4. So you're paying $20, and it's per death certificate. So they tack on $4 on top of the death certificate for their fees. And so instead of, in that county, basically you're paying $25 for a death certificate instead of $21. But that's the county's choice. Our county doesn't do that. And the nice thing is that when you come in for arrangements with us, the death certificate will cost you $21. If you go down a year from now and pick up another death certificate for your loved one, it's going to cost you $21. We do not add anything to go get the death certificate or get it signed. And one of the things that I really like about the new system is that we actually do the death certificate and the permit on the computer now. And it's called Electronic Death Registration System, which we shortened it, or they shortened it as EDRS. And we sign on to a secured website, and we can type in the death certificate and the permit. And the cool thing about this that we've done, a new thing that we started, was that when we type up a death certificate and permit, we can print out a working copy. It's not a legal copy, it's a working copy, because it's not even registered yet. And then we get emails from the families, and say we get your email address, we'll email you, we'll scan and email that death certificate and permit to you, so that you can proofread it before we even file it. That way we make sure that there's no mistakes on that death certificate, and you don't have to wait. If there's a mistake on it, you've got to wait 6 to 8 weeks minimum for the amendment to come in, and then you've got a death certificate with 2 pages. And so we've tried to squash that. And so that's what's kind of neat about it in that way. And the other thing is we don't have to run to all the doctor's offices. We fax a worksheet to the doctor, he faxes it back. We put the death certificate in the computer with the causes, we send it to the county through the secured website, through the EDRS, for the county to approve it. Once they approve it, then we send it back to the doctor, and he signs the death certificate right online. He can either call it in, or he can sign his signature and fax it back. And then we're good to file. Once we get it, we will not file a death certificate until we have the family's permission. If we get a family that's kind of dragging their heels a little bit and not giving us permission, we'll call them and say, hey, is it okay? Because we do not want to file a death certificate with mistakes. And we found that this is the best way to do it. And we don't try to be bully about it. It's just, and the state law requires us that we have to have that death certificate filed within 8 days.
Within what?
8 days from the time of death. And that includes the weekend. If a person passes away on Saturday, it has to be filed by the following Sunday. And so, you know, it's hard to do that when the county's closed. And our counties will be a little bit lenient with that. But they know that at least we're trying to get it done in the 8 days. And sometimes and what we found, the biggest delay is the doctors. Sometimes. And we call them, and we call the office, and we call them, and we call them, and we call them, and, you know, and sometimes we had a doctor that was gone for a week. You know, she was gone for 12 days, and the person passed away right after she left. And so we just had to let the county know, like with San Joaquin County, if we do it over 8 days, we have to send them a letter why we were over the 8 days. in filing it. And some counties are that way.
Well, Glenn,
Yes,
I thought that the county coroner could verify that the death had occurred. And but you're talking about going to the person's personal doctor?
yeah, we get, most of the time if they die in a hospital, convalescent home, or they're under a doctor's care, we go directly to that doctor to sign the death certificate.
But the county coroner couldn't do it then?
We have in times when the doctor was out, we're gonna be out for 2 weeks and there was and they didn't have anybody else. One of the good things too also about on this is with the doctor being out too long, is that the doctor can get one of his associates to sign. And you'll notice on some death certificates, if you see it, you'll see 2 doctors' names. One doctor who attests to the doctor's causes, and then underneath that you'll have the attending physician's name. There won't be a signature there, but that's, well, like give you an idea, Dr. Romans at the convalescent home here in town. He cannot sign a death certificate because he's a physician's attendant. He can sign them if they die in the convalescent home, but he can't sign it if he's seen them and then they went home after being in the convalescent home. He can give the causes, and then his doctor, Dr. Johnson or Dr. Kaleda, can sign the death certificate. So he signs it, and even if he signs it at the convalescent home, it'll have Dr. Kaleda or Dr. Johnson's name underneath it. But Dr. Roman signed the death certificate. And so that can work the same way with other doctors. But if we get an office that wants to be a stickler and not give it, then the coroner calls for medical records, and then the coroner will sign the death certificate.
So does the coroner always pick the person up that passes away?
No.
Or do you?
We do.
What does the
Basically, in a
coroner
sense, we do because we are also the coroner. This is only one of 2 counties in California now that doesn't have a regular coroner's office.
Okay.
Us in Tehama County is the other one. And so we're all deputy coroners. And so we go out on all the calls. But generally, and the way that we decide whether it's a coroner's call or not is if we get called by dispatch, by sheriff's dispatch. If we get called by dispatch, then we go out as coroner. If we get called by hospice, or we get called by the family, or something like that, or a neighbor, and the hospital, the ambulance has been there to call, and there's no need for a coroner, then we go out as a funeral director. Yes.
Our will says we have to have 2 doctors sign it. What happens if you die at home?
No, not in California, you don't. In California, you only need one signature from a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about California versus Oregon. And that was, that was the way it was with when my dad passed away. My dad was under hospice in Colorado, and the attending physician or the hospice doctor and the attending physician had to sign his death certificate. And so what that delay was that we had my dad's funeral on a Monday or on a Tuesday, and then they didn't bury him until Wednesday because they didn't have the death certificate signed and didn't have it registered. And so I had to roll with that because I had to get back here. I only had just a certain amount of time, and I didn't find out that they were going to have it until Wednesday, and I already had my tickets bought. But that's okay, that happens. But at least I was able to be there for his service. But in California, you only have to you either have a coroner sign or a doctor to sign. So if you're under hospice care, you'll have a hospice doctor sign. And I think one of the hospices, I think it's Bristol Hospice, continues to use the regular doctor a lot of times. I don't know if Calaveras and Amador does. Usually it's Dr. Van Fossen who signs the death certificate for Amador and Calaveras. And then for Bristol Hospice, they use Dr. Hill. Reza Hill is her name. Or sometimes they'll just use the regular doctor. If they've been new on the hospice, they'll use the attending physician that ordered the hospice. So it's really kind of easier to do that. It's just a matter of time and getting all the ducks in a row to do it right, do it effectively. Any other questions?
What kind of services can be held up if, in the case of not being able to get the doctor's signature? Like say if a patient passes on a Thursday night and the doctor isn't back in the office till Monday, like, can you not go ahead with?
We are really the only day that we're closed is Sundays.
But the doctor isn't in the office.
Well,
My question is if the
Yeah,
doctor isn't.
you can have a celebration of life, you can have a funeral, you can, if you're gonna have cremation afterwards, you can have a celebration of life, and then have the cremation happen after we get the death certificate signed. So you can do just about anything except for the burial or cremation without the death certificate being signed.
Again, ours is an out-of-state will. Do you have to have a California will?
I talked with Steve Arola this afternoon when he was here, and he says it's good to just go in and see an attorney and have it updated. It'll still work, but Oregon's laws may have changed from when you guys had that made up. I don't know how long you guys have had that made up, but it's good to have an attorney in California look at it so that you guys can figure out, you know, what works and what doesn't.
Can it be just any attorney?
Yeah, it can be any attorney, yeah. If you have an attorney, you can go right to your own attorney. So. And we work with most insurances. We found that if an insurance is assignable, which means you can fill out a form that says you assign the amount of the funeral to us, we go ahead and take care of everything else and wait for the insurance to pay us, because we've already got confirmation from the insurance that they're going to pay us. And a lot of times we have two types of insurance, two types of funding that we have here. One is Home Centers Life Company, which has been around since like 1931, and they're a stable company. It's in a sense, it's funeral insurance is what it is. And then we also have California Master Trust, which is just a trust account. With Home Centers, if you pay on it, you get a little bit more with interest, even if you pass away a couple of years after opening it up and you're still paying on it, and you get the full amount. With California Master Trust, if you're paying on it and you don't, you pass away before you've paid it all off, the family has to come up with the additional funds that it takes to do the service. It still draws interest, but we have to call California Master Trust, and then the family comes up with the difference. So that's kind of the difference between the two, insurance and just a trust account. So, okay. Well, we're out of time, so thank you guys for coming, and appreciate you coming to our first event. It's good.
Elaine is a registered nurse that works at the Cancer Center in San Andreas here. And so, in her own natural interest, she was a great choice just to kind of lead the questions. And then too, part of the purpose too is just our agencies working together and knowing each other, because we're all doing the same thing. And so that was part of our goal too, is to do this. So here she comes.
Okay.
So
All
pretty
right.
good to meet you. Elaine, I'll let you take it off with the introductions. And
Thank you, Tim, and thanks for this forum. I think it's a great idea, and I've learned a ton today. So my role is as a healthcare professional, but a lot of the questions I have are questions that have come from patients, and so they have a lot of questions about hospice. So if you guys want to just go down the line and introduce yourselves.
I'm Tammy Beilstein. I'm from Hospice of Amador in Calaveras, and I am a Grief Buster coordinator. And I'm also here with my friend Sarah Lunsford. We have the booth out there with the casket, the cremation casket on the table for a declaration.
And I'm LaDonna Seeley. I'm the Director of Patient Care Services with Hospice of Amador in Calaveras.
I'm Blair Thompson. I'm a nurse, but I'm also the Executive Director for Bristol Hospice.
And my name is Cindy Voorhees. I am the hospice liaison for Bristol Hospice. So what I do is I go out into the community and work with the hospitals, the physician practices, the nursing homes, and also do community events like this and really just educate about hospice and work with our families and our patients to explain everything and help them with the process.
Okay, so Cindy and Blair, how would you describe the role of hospice or the goal of what hospice is for?
Hospice is basically compassionate, quality care for chronically ill or terminally ill people. And so really the role is for hospice to come in and really just add extra care despite or in addition to what the facilities, if you're in a facility, may offer, or also family members caring for their loved one who are at the end of life. And so hospice comes in with that extra care, managing symptoms, pain control, and offering spiritual and emotional support for the patient and the families.
Yeah, great. And then LaDonna, what are some of the services that the hospice groups offer, like beyond just nursing care? I know there's a lot of different
Sure,
things
yes.
that hospice
All hospices will have the medical equipment that will come in. We call it durable medical equipment, DME. We have the chaplain services that you were just listening to, our chaplains that were here from hospice. We have the grief busters, we have volunteers, we have home health aides, we have social workers. In Hospice of Amador, we're all local, we're living right here, we're part of the community. We're all, and I know the nurses from Bristol, they live in the community here. We're here with you.
And how would you describe the difference between hospice care and palliative care or comfort care? I don't know if those are interchangeable or if there's a little difference between those.
You asking any of us?
Yeah, okay.
I don't mind speaking. Bristol, we don't do palliative care, we're only hospice care. But the difference is basically on the palliative care is someone is still getting treatments possibly. So if they're still getting chemo or radiation or whatever that may be, but they're also needing good pain control and a little more oversight with nurses and things coming in and needing some more support. So that's a little bit of kind of the palliative care. Not everybody is doing it right now. It just kind of depends on the hospice itself, just because you kind of have to have different things, have to be a little separated when you have palliative. But that is kind of, with hospice, you kind of have stopped some of that aggressive treatment and you're able to utilize all of the services truly with the hospice. And then palliative is a little different just because you're still getting aggressive treatment.
Yeah, that was a great explanation. And how does, what makes someone eligible for hospice, and what are some of the medical conditions that qualify a patient for hospice?
There's any medical condition that is ending your, that's the end of life, or that they, it's not just cancer. A lot of people think, well, I don't have cancer, I'm not going to be eligible, but any disease that's going to be ending your life, and hospice will come in with a diagnosis of 6 months or less. That's when you can begin. Unfortunately, most people don't begin hospice soon enough, and that's what we were talking about is, quite often it seems like the majority is almost less than a month that people live, and they could have been on hospice services a lot longer than that. And that's part of this is helping people become in the community more aware of what hospice services can do for you and your family. And I think hospice is really a lot, not just for the family, but so much so for the caregiver also, and the family of the patient.
That's a great question, and Blair, you can speak to this, but how does a patient and family know, we get this question a lot, when the right time is for them to go on hospice?
I think a lot of it is just, if the physician, if the patient or family is either not responding well to treatments, or if, say they're on chemo and you're having a lot of that excessive nausea and vomiting, and so the symptoms that you're getting from the treatments are causing more problems than the good that the treatment's doing. And then sometimes at that point, if they stop then and then contact hospice, sometimes we still have time to be able to utilize all the services that we can provide and offer. Even if you have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or stroke or CVA, if you're not responding, you know, on a stroke to therapy and you're not able to improve and things like that, then you qualify for hospice. You know, if the doctor says that you do as well and gives an order, but those are those are different conditions where we can go in earlier rather than later, and your family can benefit from the extra support and the help and the attention. We also offer volunteers, so our volunteers will go in and sit for an hour a week with your loved one. It kind of even gives the caregiver a little time to go outside and garden in the front yard. They're not having to sit and watch, you know, their mom or dad that has Alzheimer's constantly. You know, there's someone in there sitting with them while they go out and garden. You know, little things like that. So there are different benefits that we provide that if utilized earlier, you get a lot more benefit from having hospice. So.
And another question we hear a lot, Cindy, is how is hospice paid for, or you know, what is the cost, or how is that covered, maybe by insurance?
Okay. First, I wanted to kind of add, if I could, to what Blair and Donna were saying, is that, so when you're asking about what diseases would be involved with hospice, I mean, it could be any disease state. So it is, you know, any chronic illness. That's something that comes up a lot with me when I meet with families, so I just wanted to kind of expand on that a little bit. But also the thing is that for me, working with physicians, it's very difficult for them to say, you know, we all of us, we never know when our time is, right? So it's very difficult for them when they are caring and treating for their patients to really put a time frame on it and to say, you know, you have 6 months less to live. You know, qualify for hospice. That is a very difficult thing for them to do. And most of the time, I mean, Blair, probably all of you would agree, when we get referrals, it's because the patients have, you know, numerous things going on with them medically, so what we call comorbidities. And so that's more where the physicians recognize those patients, you know, can use some help coming on to hospice care because maybe it was difficult for them to say, or maybe they don't know a time frame. So it was difficult for them to say, you know, you have 6 months less to live. I just wanted to share that because I deal with that every single day.
Frequent hospitalization. So that's another thing. If you have someone like, say, congestive heart failure, and they're going to the hospital, you know, twice a month because they're having these exacerbations and things like that, then at that point, and they're tired of going to the hospital and they want to be managed at home, the nurses can come in, we can do Lasix, we can always keep a tab on the weights with the frequent visits and things like that. So we're able to manage those symptoms at home without having to keep going to the hospital. And because we're coming so frequently, we stay on top of it. So really, those patients honestly end up doing better in the long run, the CHF patients, than if they were still in that revolving door of going back and forth to the hospital because of that attention that they're getting. And we do quite often graduate people.
I was going to say that.
I mean,
hospice graduates.
yeah, we call it graduating. So sometimes we do get an order saying 6 months or less. They get a nurse, you know, 2 to 3 times a week, is coming in, checking their meds, checking their weights, giving them a lot of attention. The aides are coming, they're bathing them, they're bringing them lunch. They're doing all these things, so they do get better. They tend to improve, and we see them sometimes stabilize. And so sometimes, you know, when that happens, we have to say, you know, Medicare isn't going to keep paying for this because you're getting better. So sometimes we have to graduate people off and then, you know, keep an eye on them or stay in touch. And then when they do decline more, we can put them back on.
But some people do stay on hospice longer than 6 months.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many people who think there's a 6 month cutoff, that once you reach that 6 months, you have to go off and you can't continue. But I was a volunteer for hospice for quite a while before I got hired on there. And I had a patient that I was seeing for over a year, which is not usual, but it can happen.
Yeah, I actually have two patients right now
Do you?
that I've kept as a case manager, and both of them have been on for 2 years now, and that's not a norm. But it's like their disease is slowly progressing. I mean, there's still that change, and it's one of those things that if the doctor says, well, I'm sorry, you know, you're not eligible any longer, but they still are, and so we keep them on. We have to keep them on because they're dependent on us at this point.
Which is better for the whole family. We get to know them as people, they get to know us. We become part of the family. In fact, that one patient I mentioned, when he finally did die, his daughter called me and said they were putting a service together for him, and she wanted to make sure I could come. And they had a big frame put together with his family members and the most important times of his life, and they had a picture of me with him in that frame, and it meant so much, but we got to spend so much time with him that we really got to be part of the family.
Yeah, that's something I wrote down during the chaplain's talk, is that they build relationships
Yes,
with
definitely.
the family, and I think if that can start early before the end, then
Yeah.
there's time for all of those
The
relationships.
sooner we're called, the better.
Yeah, and then what about the Grief Busters?
Well,
program
Grief
that you
Busters,
offer?
we can go in and start helping the children in the family before the death occurs. We call that anticipatory grief. And I'll get a notice from LaDonna or one of the people upstairs to let me know that there's a family, a person who's dying, and they either have children or grandchildren or even nieces and nephews, whoever. As long as the child loves this person who is dying, we will see them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a hospice family either. In this Grief Buster program, we will see any child in grief, no matter how their loved one died. But it's really great because our volunteer will go in there and start spending time with the child and get to know them before the death happens. And kids, especially the younger ones, have the most basic questions, like, what does that mean he's going to die? When will he be back? And they really don't even understand what death is. They just don't have the life experience to know that sort of thing. So the volunteer talks with them about that, and it's really wonderful because the child, they can sense very early, if I bring this up and ask my mom or dad this question, they're going to get sad and they might start crying, and I don't want them to cry, so I just won't ask. But having an outside person who's there just for them, it's awesome. These volunteers that we have are incredible. And when they connect with the child before the death happens, they can continue with them afterward and be there for the hardest time of their life. And we don't, we will see the child as long as they need us to. We say 6 weeks just so we have some sort of timeline in there, but we see some kids for much longer. And if they graduate with our Grief Buster program, and maybe an anniversary of a death comes up, or holidays, something that kind of triggers something for them, we will take them right back again, and we try to set them up with that same volunteer so they can continue once more. Tim actually is one of our Grief Buster volunteers, and he is so appreciated.
Yeah, that's a great program. Can you, LaDonna, kind of walk through, like, what's the process of a family, of a patient knows that they're going to be going on hospice? Like, how does it happen, and is there an initial meeting, and then what are the steps, and what are the financial steps for patients?
The financial steps? Well, Hospice of Amador and Calaveras will take any patient, no matter if their ability to pay. So if they don't have insurance, or if they're not old enough for Medicare, it's a charity, and I think Bristol does that too. I think most hospices will do that. So there's hospice will pay, it's either charity or it's through Medicare or Medi-Cal. Very rarely does a private insurance pay.
Shop at thrift stores.
Yeah, thrift stores.
Shop at thrift stores, please.
Introductory meeting where you kind of explain everything.
Yeah, and so they can be, a patient can be referred either by a family or loved one, by the doctor, by a nurse, by a neighbor, and then we would give the initial call to the family or whoever's asking for service, or the patient too, and go out and do an info visit, so we could introduce what hospice is all about, how we can be part of their life and bringing the end of life to exceptional quality. So that's, the info visit, and then we'll get medical records sent over from the doctor if they want to go forward with it. Then we have to get approved, by our medical director has to say yes, they're qualified, because there is criteria that the hospice patient would have to qualify for, and showing that they have that 6 months or less.
Okay. And then Blair, what kind of, our patients want to know, like, can they still see their doctor? Can they go to the hospital? What kind of things can they still do once they're on hospice? Or hospice provides everything for them?
Hospice essentially provides everything. So any hospice patient at any point has the right to revoke hospice and go to the hospital and, you know, seek aggress, if they change their mind, they always have that right to go to the hospital and do that. But we do provide comprehensive care in the home. So even if you come on hospice for congestive heart failure and you get a urinary tract infection, we will still order an antibiotic and treat you for that in the home. We won't make you go to the hospital or go back to your doctor just to do that. Our goal is to make it so you don't have to leave your home and go to the doctor if you don't want to. And that's typically when someone comes on hospice, that's the end goal, is they don't want to have to go back and keep doing all these things. So we do the best that we can to make sure that we provide all comfort in the home, and that includes antibiotics, or if you need, if you start to have some fluid retention or something like that, we'll order things to make sure you're comfortable. And that's just part of the whole thing. And as far as private insurances, we are contracted with different insurance companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare. If you do have, like, if you're under 65 and don't have Medicare and you do have a private insurance, we do take that as well. So, you know, each hospice you'd have to kind of check, you know, who they're contracted with. But they are, you know, private insurances, they do pay for hospice as well. So.
And then what are the requirements of the family once a family member is on hospice?
There always has to be a caregiver if it's in the home. Mm-hmm. There always has to be a 24-hour caregiver in the home with the patient. We supplement care. We don't come in and stay 24 hours, but we do supplement the care with the family member. If they're in a facility, you know, then we supplement the facility's care that they're giving. We provide an aid to those patients, so sometimes they might get it back 5 days a week in a facility because they're getting that extra care. They're getting an extra nurse going in and seeing them. So those are services that are provided on top of what the initial caregiving service that's being given.
And that was going to be my next question. So if a patient is in a care facility such as Avalon or a nursing home, they can go on hospice during that time.
And even, you know, then the other CIS care over in Amador County, we have the Gold Quartz and, you know, the different residential care facilities where that's somebody's home. And so we go into there and take care of them in the care facilities, Kit Carson or Avalon.
Great answers. What else do you guys want to add that I didn't bring up?
I guess I want to add the Medicare, or you said what did they cover. If you do have Medicare and you go on hospice, it is covered at 100%. So all of the medications, all of the DME, which is the durable medical equipment, a hospital bed, a wheelchair, portable oxygen. Like if you want to be able to still go to church on Sunday, you know, we provide portable oxygen concentrators so that you can actually go to church on Sunday with your family and do some of those things that you still want to do. So sometimes when you go on hospice, because all this extra equipment is being available to you, sometimes they actually get to go and do a little bit more things that they weren't able to do before. And so we provide the walkers, you know, shower chairs, just things like that. And so anyway, so all that is covered by Medicare at 100%. So there is no cost out of pocket to anybody.
Cindy, what do you want to?
Oh my gosh, we covered everything. There's so much more really to it. You know, when you do come on service, there's a care team that is you know, pretty much the same clinical people caring for you, which is a nurse, a home health aide, the social workers involved, who's a wealth of information with outside resources and just really helping with social aspects. And then the chaplain is involved. So, you know, and there are our medical director. So you have this whole team of people, and then in the office, the executive directors, and then, you know, just really everyone is very involved. And just, it's not, you know, hospice is caring for the patient, no doubt, that's our number one priority, but also it's about caring, it's the families as well, okay?
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of one more thing to add. Our volunteers are a huge part of our hospice. I don't think we could provide the great care that we give without them. I don't know if it's the same in every hospice, but ours, they commit to like 4 hours at a time at the patient's house. Is that every hospice?
We just do an hour at a time,
Okay.
so if it's like one day a week or...
Yeah. So So yeah, like these ladies were saying, that they're long enough to let you take care of your own appointments and go grocery shopping and the things that need to be done while the volunteers are there. But if you are interested or know anyone interested who might be a good hospice volunteer, please let us know, because they're what keep us going. They're fantastic. They're, like I said, the ones who meet with the children in the grief programs. They stay with the patient for the family support. They're incredible people, and we sure value them, don't we? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, let us know if that's an interest of yours.
And then after a family's loved one dies, is there like a follow-up as far as,
Most definitely. Because that's,
spiritual care?
where the family and the caregivers or the neighbors or, so we have the chaplains that are available. Our nurses will call with a follow-up to check in with you, how you're doing. And then I know our chaplains will kind of check in every month or more, depending on the needs of the patient and for that one-on-one care.
And we follow for 13 months, so.
I think that's
Yeah,
for everybody, yeah.
once a month for 13 months or more. We have grief support groups. We have, we actually offer one on the third Wednesday of every month at Foothill Village in Angels Camp. And then we also have one down in Stockton on the first Wednesday of every month. But the grief support groups are put on by our chaplain. That's always something that's ongoing. And then we also, that follow-up, there's letters, there's mailers, there's phone calls, there's one-on-one. The chaplain will even meet one-on-one, within those 13 months on multiple occasions if needed as well, so.
great, do we have any questions from the audience?
So if you're a volunteer and you're there for an hour, is there some kind of training you go through? What if the person were to choke or to die while you're there? Are you somehow liable?
No.
I mean,
You're not liable, but there is hands-on training. Our volunteer coordinator, who is Carol, who's actually out there, she comes to you, she'll come to and do trainings and things like that. There's a lot of computer training as well that you do. She gives it to you, kind of do it on your own time before you ever go with a patient, but there is a lot of hands-on training that she does as well. So she brings all the information to you and gets you through the training before you ever get assigned to a patient. And the first patient that you get assigned to, she actually goes with you the first time with the first patient to introduce you to the family, to the patient, just so you feel comfortable with, the situation. But we're always a phone call away. She gives everybody my card, my cell phone number. If you're ever in a situation with a patient or a family, I'm always available, so.
Yep.
Same.
Yeah, and then I know with Hospice of Amador, we have a dog program too, so a companion dog program. And the volunteers, as part of our volunteer program, is that they come out with their dogs that have been trained and have been certified. And so that's really a nice addition, and they go into the care facilities also.
Yeah.
It's always great.
We have our veteran program also, where we train veteran volunteers to spend time with patients who are veterans. And I'll just bring up the patient I had for quite a while. His name was Pete, and after he died, I learned more about him. When it came to that sort of thing, his family mentioned that he had been in the war. They told me some stories about his time there. He never told me any of that stuff. We talked about family and work and that sort of thing, but he didn't talk to me about that. But we didn't have our veteran program then. But, and I've never been in the military, but I've heard from quite a few people of that age that there are some things they just don't want to talk about to anyone except somebody who's been there and done that, who gets it, who understands it. So it's just a wonderful program, and I got it after I understood later why Pete didn't talk with me about that. I obviously would not understand a lot of the things that he had been through if he wants to talk about hair and makeup, and that I'm all over that. But military service, we never touched it at all. So I wish we had that program then, because I know it's very helpful for the veterans.
And this is a huge community with a lot of veterans. So Bristol Hospice, we have veterans ceremonies the week leading up to Veterans Day. I do them all over, and it's basically we're presenting veterans with a nice certificate and a flag pin, and just really honoring them for their service. So you know, that's important, especially in a community like this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We also have a Namaste program as well, so we have some patients that just benefit from that light touch, a mild massage type therapy. We use like lavender lotions and just kind of turn down the lights, and using our aides do that as part of their services that they go out. Sometimes we just have patients that are only on Namaste. Maybe they don't really want to shower, or they're doing those things still kind of on their own with assistance of family, but they just want the Namaste program. So we do offer that as well.
Okay, and then as far as like the nursing visits, how often do the nurses visit, and do those visits kind of accelerate as death is getting closer? Or
They do, and usually in the last week or two of life, we'll almost have a visit every day from a nurse, usually every day. Prior to that, it really depends on the patient's needs, and it might be one time a week if they're stable and just declining slowly, and that's all they need, or that's all they sometimes want. Sometimes it's hard for us, you know, they don't want a nurse there all the time. Other patients, they want somebody there 4 times a week, and it's quite often the need of the caregiver. You know, the caregiver doesn't know how to take care of or can't take care of, and so it's educating the caregivers at a time too. So it could be anywhere from what, you know, it's as often as the patient needs.
And for Bristol, our company standard, we do have companies, other offices in other states nationwide. We're in Hawaii and Texas and Georgia and Colorado, and so we're all over, but our company standard is a minimum of twice a week from a nurse. So our nurses always go out twice a week, no matter what, unless the family is just, I only want you one time. But the standard is we have to go out twice a week. We do go more than that depending on what's going on with the patient, and especially when there is that time of transitioning where we think they might be coming truly end of life, then we do visit daily.
And then it's not only a nurse going, it's also, like I said, that care team who's involved. So there may be a visit by the social worker, or, you know, the home health aide is going 2 times, 3 times, however often. I mean, we actually had a patient in Valley Springs where the staff recognized the need. Our home health aide was going every morning first thing, and then on his way when he got done in the end of the day, in the evening. So going and seeing that patient twice a day. So it's a case-by-case basis, you know, what is needed.
So it is a big team. There's the nursing, the spiritual care, and then home health aides that help with more of the PDLs. Yeah.
And sometimes we'll go in together. It will be a nurse and a home health aide, or the nurse and the social worker, or the chaplain, because there's the need of that whole family, with, you know, not just the patient. Again, I go back to the caregivers, the family, because, you know, we're there, the hospice is always there for the needs of the family too.
Okay. Do we have any more questions?
I'm wondering about the name Bristol.
It's actually from Bristol, England. That's actually where the whole inception of hospice started, was actually in Bristol, England. So they had the first hospice patient in Bristol. And so that's where we got our name. So our logo actually has a little bridge, and that is an actual bridge in Bristol, England. So that's how it's Bristol.
Where are you located in?
Our office is actually in Stockton, but it's just a brick and mortar building, to be honest. I'm probably, me and the intake coordinator and the business office manager or the secretary, they're probably the only people that are there on a regular basis.
Okay.
All the nurses pretty much work from their homes, so a lot of our nurses and aides all live in this area. We have nurses, you know, all over, so they work from their home, they start their day from their home, so they don't necessarily come down to that office except for about once every 2 weeks. So all their supplies that they need are shipped to their home, so that's just kind of, it's just a brick and mortar building. It's just an address for a lot of our staff, so we're out in your community.
I think in some of the bigger cities, they actually have a hospice wing in a hospital, or an actual building that may be a hospice house, but we don't have anything like that up in the foothills. So the patients are in their home
Or facilities, skilled
Or
nursing.
or
stuff.
nursing facility, yes, okay.
Our social workers, they help with placement, so, if you do have a loved one that, you're caring for at home and it just gets to be too much, and they do have Medi-Cal or something like that, our social workers will work with you on placement and helping you get them somewhere where they, gives you a little bit of relief. We offer respite, things like that, so that if, you need 5 days of relief, so that you can care for yourself, so that you can care better for your loved one. There's also the respite option too that is covered, so.
Right, and I know both your agencies offer respite care, and Donna, do you just want to explain what that means?
Well, respite is for the family, for the caregiver, really more than the patient at times. And at the end of life, and the caregiver has been, under so much stress and needs that break of caring. And so the respite is to one of the skilled nursing facilities or to one of the hospitals. And it's a 5-night, usually 4-night, 5-day program. And so then they have complete care at that respite facility, be it up at Avalon or at Kit Carson or at one of the hospitals here locally. So it's really nice because it gives the caregiver time for self-care, which is so important. Really emphasize that for the families. Please take time, take care of yourself. You need to be there.
Great. Any more questions?
Good questions.
Great questions, yeah. Well, thank you, and we learned so much today about hospice and the process and the services offered. It was really fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you all for
And
being here.
both Bristol Hospice and Hospice of Amador and Calaveras have booths outside, and they're all available to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tammy. Today Sarah and I are in San Andreas at the Before I Die Forum, which is taking place at the San Andreas Memorial Chapel in San Andreas. We wanted to do an activity where we're going to be decorating a cremation container. People always see these in this same plain brown cardboard. And we are going to show you guys how you can decorate this to personalize it and make it one of a kind for your special person. We have some paint, some glitter, felt pens, some construction paper and glue. You can do anything that you'd like to this, as long as it doesn't require batteries. Batteries not allowed in the in the crematory. So join us, come on back, and we'll show you some more ideas on how to decorate your cremation container.